Welcome back to the Alec Lewis Show. I am your host, Alec Lewis, here for a Vikings-Packers preview. This is episode 20, I believe, not counting the live Q&A. A couple quick housekeeping things. The first, I was going to have Matt Schneidman, who covers the Packers for The Athletic. He's ducking me. No. Matt and I did like a full-on preview at The Athletic, going back and forth about this game, so I didn't want to bother him for another ask, even though he would have been kind enough and gracious enough to join me. So that's one of the housekeeping things. The second is I'm wearing green. Didn't plan that. Not any specific. If you're listening to this on audio on Spotify, Apple, or iHeart, just know I'm wearing a green hoodie. It's a Lululemon hoodie. That makes me sound as bougie as I am. But I did not plan this. I kind of forgot that they played the Packers this weekend. And, objective journalism. So nothing to it there. The third housekeeping, and I had a list. I didn't really write it down. But the third thing that I'm going to say is, it's a big weekend for me. You can probably tell in my voice. I've got a little bit of excitement. I'm a little juiced up. It's not just Vikings-Packers, but the Alabama Crimson Tide football team play the Georgia Bulldogs on Saturday night, and that's going to be a hell of a game. I'm from Alabama. Am I a fan? You can't really say that publicly, but let's just say I grew up in Alabama, so you can probably read between the lines on that. And on a serious note, just really looking forward to the game. It should be very fun. And then the fourth housekeeping thing that just came to my mind is I did the live Q&A Wednesday. If you guys missed that, that's on YouTube. I'm just going to keep those just on YouTube to kind of smartly direct my business. To where you got to go to YouTube, you got to subscribe to get that type of stuff. And we'll probably do those every Wednesday evening. I'll spend like 30 minutes just answering questions, giving you whatever kind of analysis I can get from inside the building, conversations that I have with people. And so I'll leave that exclusively there. But the fourth aspect of the housekeeping was on that live Q&A, there was a guy who commented. I can't remember the guy's username. And I read the comments because I'm a psychopath. And if you're a media person, you read the comments. That's what you have to be. But the guy said, like, can you do something to get your head out of my screen? And I don't blame him, like, at all. Like, if you had to look at me and just look at my face for 30 minutes listening to me talk about football, I'd go crazy too. So I appreciated the comment. I thought that was brilliant. Now, what can I do about it? Absolutely nothing. Thought about like coming to this podcast today, if you're watching on YouTube, with like a paper bag over my head. That would probably make it better, honestly. But there's nothing I can do about that. I'm trying to change up my look by losing hair, and that's a bad joke, but that's kind of how I operate. We're going to go run this real quick, partly because I have a radio hit. So by the time I get out of here, I'm going to have to go do that. So I don't want to take too much of your time. But I have 5 things, not that I'm watching, but like 5 specific, aspects of this game that are on my mind and that I'll be watching very closely. The first is Justin Jefferson against Jaire Alexander. The easy pick right here would have just been to go with Aaron Jones from the top. But I don't go with the easy route. This is, you challenge yourself. You go through adversity. It's about discipline here at the Alec Lewis Show. Jaire Alexander, who is a interesting cornerback, and I'm going to leave it at the word interesting, did not play last year in Minnesota when Justin Jefferson was healthy because he was suspended because the game before, I believe, he went out to the captain circle, and he's not a captain because the game was in Charlotte, and I think he's from Charlotte. Does that make sense? Not really, but that's the reality. So Jaire, I was really looking forward to these two guys going up against each other. We asked Justin Jefferson about it early in the week. He didn't really have much to say. People clip certain comments, whatever, but like the reality is just being there and watching the way that Justin interacted with those questions. It was like, yeah, I know I'm really good. Jaire is what it is. He's going to talk. Like, he's chirping because that's what he does. And he's like, yeah, he gritty to top me in 2022, but I'm going to gritty in his end zone. So there was that. But if you're listening to this on Friday, you probably saw that Jaire Alexander did not practice with, I believe, a groin injury, and he is questionable for the game. And if you don't practice Friday and it's a groin thing that tightens up. I mean, maybe they loosen it up for the game, but it wouldn't make me feel really phenomenal if a Vikings player was like practicing during the week and then didn't practice on a Friday at all. If they were limited, I'd probably feel a little better about it, but Jaire wasn't. He didn't practice at all on Friday, and so pretty interesting. Now, could he play? Of course, this is the NFL. Who knows what these teams do? They all are playing smoke and mirror games, whatever, to try to affect the other team. But, I mean, point being, if the Packers don't have Jaire Alexander, kind of unfortunate for a matchup I was really looking forward to watching, but also I have a hard time trying to figure out what they're going to do defensively. Would their cornerbacks be Eric Stokes, who's had a pretty solid year so far, and then Keyshawn Nixon, who I like as a kick returner, and he's a very athletic guy. But I just don't know how you cover Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Jalen Naylor, and then also stop the run with Aaron Jones without Jaire Alexander. It would put them in a very tough spot. So I'm watching all of that. If Jaire plays, I'm watching that matchup very closely because while Justin didn't talk a lot about it and he kind of downplayed it, he's a competitor. So if he doesn't play, I'm watching what that looks like for the Packers coverage principles and how Jeff Hafley, the Packers defensive coordinator, wants to organize things if he doesn't have Jaire. So that's the first thing that I want to hit on. Now I'll transition to the obvious Aaron Jones. And you might tune out because you've read about Aaron Jones returning. You've watched it. But I want to go game specific here. So the Packers are giving up 4.4 yards per play on true rushing attempts. That's like in the back half of the NFL right now. So they have a lot to prove in terms of stopping the run this weekend. And this is why the Vikings sign an Aaron Jones. Because if you can have a guy who can run the football effectively to force defenses to apply extra defenders in the box, that means they don't have as many defenders or as much tools at their disposal to apply to pass coverage. And then you got to cover Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Jalen Naylor, like I just said. Not an easy place to be at all whatsoever. It's a pick your poison. No, I mean, legitimately, that is a hard place to be. And, so my question is, can the Packers stop the run? If they can, what does that mean for how their ability to stop the pass? And the Vikings offensive staff is well aware that the Packers are going to have to sort through this. And again, if you have to do that without Jaire Alexander, it's an entirely different beast. Now, I like the Packers interior. I like Kenny Clark. I like TJ Slayton as a run-stopping defender. I like Carl Brooks, a young interior player. I like Devontae Wyatt, the 2022 first-round pick from Georgia who's really started to come on and who leads the Packers in pressures. So, it's going to be interesting. But Aaron Jones, regardless of who the opposing team has had on the interior, Aaron Jones has found a way to produce. And I wrote about it earlier this week. Each team over the course of Aaron Jones' career that has spurned him, New Mexico in college, they recruited him and didn't show up for a recruiting visit. He torched them every time he played them. The Dallas Cowboys, his dad's favorite team, was interested in him around the draft, and then they didn't draft him, and Aaron Jones stuck it to them every time he played them. So, yeah, Green Bay has their hands full is what I would say in stopping the ground game. So that's number two. Number three, the Jordan Love health. Jordan Love is questionable for this game too, and he practiced in a limited fashion throughout this week. If he plays, how healthy is he really? And are you really willing to have a guy who's not fully healthy go up against a Brian Flores defense that is, aggressive beyond belief and is willing to make you have to move around in the pocket? How would that look? Do you really want to throw Jordan Love back in his first game back against the defense that is going to psychologically test you, mentally test you, but also physically? Things can get messy in there against this Vikings pass rush. So what does that look like? Regardless, here's what I'll say, and this is just my prediction. Regardless of of whether Jordan Love starts or whether he doesn't play at all, even if he starts, I would not be surprised at all In fact, I would expect the Packers to have a package or two of Malik Willis, and maybe that's to use him in the run game. Maybe that's to use him as you think it's a deception of the run game, but they actually throw with Malik Willis because he's done that. That's what I'd say. I expect to see both quarterbacks Sunday. And originally, I don't know if I would have thought that, but just, my intuition, maybe talking to people, that's just what I'd say. And how the Packers try to integrate Malik Willis, maybe he's just the starter in general. So then there's no question. But if Jordan Love starts, how they integrate him, I'll be interested to see how that goes. That's point number 3. Number 4, 2 guys, Packers players I want you to keep an eye on. One I already mentioned, Devontae Wyatt, the 2022 first-round pick from Georgia, who's an interior defensive lineman, really big guy who moves like a little guy. The type of guy who, I don't know from a character standpoint how much he would have fit Brian Flores, because I haven't scouted him in that regard. I'm not saying he might be a great character guy. I don't really know. But from a body type and what he can do from a twitch perspective, like exactly what I would have, exactly the type of player that I would think Brian Flores would have been interested in the draft. And he, like I said earlier, he's really come on this year, has 9 pressures. And it's going to be very interesting to watch him against this Vikings interior offensive line, which I'll talk about in a second as my number 5 point in this game. But Devontae Wyatt, remember that name. Watch him on the interior Sunday. He could wreak some havoc. The other Packers player I want you to keep an eye on, and then I'll add another just for fun. But the first one, Xavier McKinney. He's their safety. They picked him up from the Giants. He's still a very young player, but he has multiple interceptions this year. And I listened to Jeff Hafley, the Packers defensive coordinator, his press conference the other day, and he was raving about Xavier McKinney. His anticipatory ability on the back end at safety, his ability to cap verticals on the back end, just an athletic, dynamic safety that I'll have my eyes on. And then third, I'll just say Jaden Reed. I love that guy when he's coming out in the draft. I believe it was 2023 from Michigan State. He played college with Jalen Naylor, but they get him the ball in the backfield. He's like a slot, kind of quick twitch, little athletic guy, but dynamic. And all their receivers are very interesting. The Romeo Dobbs, the Dontavian Wickses, the Christian Watson. It's a tough group. Not to say that the Texans weren't, but I have my eye on Jaden Reed because he can be a one-man explosive play waiting to happen. And then number 5, and then I'll get you guys out of here pretty quickly with this. But the interior of the offensive line, I'm watching Ed Ingram, Garrett Bradbury. They've given up a combined 20 pressures this year. And against this front, Kenny Clark has given problems to Garrett Bradbury over the course of time. So I just got my eyes on those 2 in particular, Blake Brandel as well, but that's number 5. So just to rattle them off, and then we're going to get out of here. I told you it was going to be quick. Jaire Alexander, if he plays, what does that look like in terms of the matchup? If he doesn't play, how do they defend the pass? Aaron Jones return game, good luck to the Packers. Jordan Love's health, is he playing? And if he is playing, could they use a Malik Willis package, and what will that look like? Xavier McKinney, Devontae Wyatt, Jaden Reed. I'm watching those 3 for the Packers, and then the interior of the offensive line for the Vikings. Can they hold up? That's a quick 5. That's a preview for the Packers game. You can watch this on YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Thank you guys for watching. Enjoy the heck out of this weekend. Should be another really good game. That's the Alec Lewis Show, episode 20. A quick episode. If it's not enough, let me know. But if it's not enough, also go watch the live show where the guy can't stand looking at my face, which, again, I don't blame him at all. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the weather. Rivalry week. Let's ride.